Hey teachers, my name is Deanna Vallone with Dakota STEAM Learning, and I am here to help you out with how to best use our STEAM menus, which are one of my very, very favorite things in the whole wide world. So let's kind of get into it. So let's start with talking about logistics. So when would you use the STEAM menu? We always want to use these. So these, almost all of them are coordinated to science unit. We do have a few seasonal, so disregard the statement if you have chosen one of our seasonal menus, which are so fun. Then obviously just do them in the season. But for most of them, they're coordinated to a science unit, and they are not designed to replace your science lessons. They are to STEAMify it. So they're a way for your students who've already learned the nitty gritty science part of it. And now they get to explore that same and really strengthen their science knowledge through technology, engineering, art, and math explorations around that topic. So you want to do that towards the end. So if you're doing a unit on gravity, obviously we want them to have some understanding of gravity, and that's going to come through those science lessons. So once you're starting to wrap up that unit, or at least you've got one or two explorations that you've already done scientifically where the kids have some of that mental elasticity to hold on to gravity, then you would move into allowing them to work on these STEAM menus. So we don't ever want the STEAM menu to be in place of quality science instruction. It's just a way to strengthen it and for the kids to really, really understand that topic in a much more critical thinking and creative way. So, always towards the end of that unit, when they already have a good amount of knowledge about the topic, these are just going to really strengthen that understanding. Where could you do these? So, I have been a general education teacher. I've been a STEAM specialist teacher. I've used these as homework. I've used these in small groups. I've used these all four of these places, and they are great in all of them. So, if you're a general education teacher and you are in charge of your science instruction, then you absolutely can use these menus as you're going through. So, that's a great way to use them inside of your own classroom. If you're a STEAM teacher, so you're a special area teacher, you definitely want to coordinate with your science pacing guide, with the teachers on your campus, and maybe they're doing the science lessons, but then you can support it as they're wrapping up. So you might even be a month behind. Like, oh, they're studying gravity in October, so my November STEAM menu is going to be gravity centered. So you can just reinforce that. That's an awesome way to have that collaboration. And it's an awesome way to have kids really understand that topic for sure. If you want to do it for homework, obviously you need to be very aware of your students and their access to materials because it does require some materials. I mean, I've sent home materials. That's a lot of work though. I'm just going to be honest with you, but definitely an option if you want to send materials home with them. But yeah, love it as a homework option. I'd recommend like the whole thing for a month, and maybe they have to do one a week, or I don't know. It's up to you. You know your family's best, but that's an awesome thing to do in homework. If you are an interventionist teacher or some sort of special teacher in that regard, GATE loves these. If you have GATE in your area, they absolutely love them. Know that high academic achievement does not in any way coordinate to engineering, art, this type of math, this type of technology exploration. They do not go hand in hand. So don't assume because a child is either very high academically or very low academically that this will be a place where you automatically think they're going to thrive or really struggle. It would surprise you. STEAM is very, very different. So, if you have kids with behavioral issues, STEAM is amazing for them. It's so kinesthetic. It really helps a lot of them. So, I'd recommend in there as well. So, who should be doing these? all of your kids for sure. Like I said, sometimes, we'll do them in these specialty situations, but they're really designed for all kids. And one thing that we did is from learning in our own classrooms is you have a menu that does not tell them how many they have to do. You get to choose that. So you do not have to have all kids require the same. You can require all kids to do one of them and then do additional that they choose. It's really up to you. And when I go through the different options, I'll give you some suggestions for ways that you can do that for sure. So it has that built-in differentiation piece for sure. How could I get this done? Like I said, it can be whole class activities. Just because it's a menu doesn't mean you can't do them together, for sure. And when I go through the different ones, I'll kind of share some tips for that. But you can definitely do the whole menu together, like for sure, and letting kids choose the order you go to and things like that. That's definitely an option. And especially early in the year, I would recommend, especially if you're a STEAM teacher who's going to use this as kind of some of the backbone of their curriculum, which I highly recommend. I think it's awesome. And it's one of my favorite ways to teach STEAM special areas through things like this. Um, you just really probably want to start the year by doing all of them together until they are really confident in the different types of activities that's happening and how to navigate the system of a menu. I would definitely do all of them together. Independent work times. So as they get better, like by January, you might not need to do any whole group together anymore, or maybe even way sooner, depending on your kids and their ages. But you can definitely independent work time, must do, may do time. So when they're done with something, then they can pull this out. Earn time, fun Friday, things like that. These are things that kids usually love doing. So that's the cool thing about these STEAM menus is they can be used in such a great variety of way where kids a lot of times think that it's like something special, whereas it's really just a key part of your curriculum. So that's what's really awesome about them. So let's kind of get through and let me show you some of these resources. So when you obviously have now you have access to one of our STEAM menus. So the first thing you want to do is I'm assuming, obviously found this page and that's how you wound up on this video. But on that read first, you're really going to have a lot of information. It's everything you need. So obviously you're watching the Steam menu video right now to get the tips and tricks. And I'm so sorry, you're going to hear my voice way too much because I am really going to recommend that you watch the teacher tips video because that one's all about your actual menu. So if you buy more than one of our menus, please don't watch this video again, but always watch that teacher tips video. And you'll also see the material list right underneath. And that material list is obviously key because you want to make sure that you have everything for each activity, or else you need to get it off your menu, which you totally can. Like, we really try and design these with no specialty stuff. We will sometimes say they're an option, but we really try to do stuff that we think that all teachers would have access to. But if you don't, just sorry kids, we can't do technology this time. And it is what it is, right? I mean, it's a bummer, but we as teachers, we just make it work, right? Next up is the student menu. That's the one that you're going to want every kid to have. And what's awesome about that student menu is every student menu, like I said, can be differentiated because there's a spot right there that tells them how many. So you can either make all of them do 3, or you can walk around and say, you're doing 2 and you have to do 4 and you have to do 5 and you have to do 2. Like I said, I'd always recommend 2 plus, but never feel like each kid has to do every single one. That's kind of the point with menus, right? Is them getting to figure out what they like and what they don't. So make sure you have a student menu for each kid. I recommend signing in the boxes as they turn things in. If you have something like Seesaw or a Google Classroom, having them take pictures of things is awesome so that they have a digital portfolio of everything they did on their STEAM menus. Next up is slides. So we have 2 different versions for your slides. We've got a straight Canva one. That's the one that you can view in Canva. and the kids can see it. But if you would like a Google Slide one, you can also do that. I do think that one's a little bit friendlier for posting for students to manipulate. I would recommend using the Google Slides if you have access to Google. If not, the kids can totally do the same thing on the Canva one. It's housed in Canva. So you're just going to have to give them a link, and then they're going to have to manipulate it through Canva every time, as opposed to something that would sit inside their slides, obviously. Last up is those activity sheets, and those are the student sheets that need to be printed. Remember, when you're printing those, if you're requiring every kid to do every activity, then you need to have one per kid. But if you're not going to need one per kid, because if only 5 out of your 20 kids are going to end up doing art, you are not going to need that many. So one thing that you can do is have them choose their activities on their menu before you make copies, if copies are a thing for you. Yeah, you can laminate, obviously, and reuse year after year. The kids there are spots on there where they diagram and things like that, but if you laminate, they could use a dry erase marker. So that's an option for you too. Let's look at what the kids will actually be seeing. We have added video elements to everything because since it's a menu, I wanted it to be manipulatable for kids at any level on their own. So as long as they know how to navigate a QR, they can always, and a link, they can always know what's going on in this menu. So they're going to get in the presentation mode. I'm just giving you an example of our kindergarten, how to be a steamer menu. So this is what it looks like. The kids have access, and the first thing on their presentation is they can actually click on this big red button, and I go through the menu for them. So if you are doing that, please, if you want to hear my voice, you can totally have me do it, but you can also do this. So we always have a second one with no video, but we wanted to have a video version because a lot of people are going to have kids do it independently, and we all know they don't hear the first time. So they, in their presentation, will be able to have me go over what the 5 options are in the simplest forms, because this is only one of the videos they have access to. So they have one video just kind of going over the menu options, because that's really important for kids to know. I don't want them to make a choice not knowing what something else was, because like they start doing the engineering and then they see their friend doing the art and they're like, I should have chose art. So I want to make sure they knew what their 5 options were going to be. And then they also have a 1-page sheet with a QR code for each one of these that goes over in detail how to do that individual one. So they have so many resources to be successful on these projects. So they'll have a menu. They have, like I said, the student menu looks like this. It just has a little bit added that tells them what to do. And the student menu has QRs. So if you do not have a way for students to access QRs, they can still use these with the hot links on them. But QRs are the easiest way. I'm just going to be honest with you, because I can't hot link on a piece of paper like I can with a QR. So let's go over the different ones, and I'll give you kind of some insight into them. So like I said, most of ours are centered around science. So our science is not a science experiment, because you probably already did that. This is really just a review activity. This is a way for them to reevaluate what they already know about this topic and make sure that their knowledge is where it needs to be able to do these other things. So this is a good one to require everyone to do. It's a good quick check to see where your kids are at on something that they've already been learning about, right? So science experiments with independently is really, really difficult. And so that's part of the reason why we do this as well. So in theirs, they have a sheet that's a KWLQ, and on there is the QR to the video that they are doing it on. So they do the K and the W before they watch the video, and the L and the Q afterwards. Hopefully that K and W is really, really full, because your kids have already been doing a lot with this. if they're doing it in presentation mode, it does have a link to it, and it does have this video explaining how to do a KWLQ, but hopefully they're probably pretty knowledgeable about it. Technology. So, technology, we only have 3 different types of technology that we use in our technology part, because these are things that most schools have access to. I didn't want to do anything too fancy because a lot of schools don't have access to them, and a lot of teachers don't have enough knowledge to help kids with it because they haven't experienced it themselves. So the 3 categories are digital animations, which you're probably going to use something like with little kids, Scratch Junior, older kids, Scratch. If you have any of the other ones, I would say those are the bare minimums, right? Scratch and Scratch Junior. You could definitely do this whole year just using those. If digital animation is a thing for you and you are teaching your kids something more involved, kudos to you. And on this part in the presentation, we've included a spot where you can input a video specific to the technology that you will have students use. So when I'm doing this, I already have my own videos about how to do Scratch Junior for my kindergartners. And so I just put those right in there. If you do not have that, there's so many helpful things on the internet. I just didn't want to assume which platform you were going to use. So this is a way for you to personalize it, right? So once again, they're going to have, we call them one pagers. So there's a technology one pager. And on this part, and on the one pager is a QR explaining to them what they have to do. So they have access to it while they have the physical sheet, or they can hit this red button and watch the exact same video of me explaining the challenge to them on their presentation. It's going to go to the same video both times, both on the paper and on the presentation. So if you're not doing a digital animation, the other 2 that we have are robotics. Most schools at this point have some sort of robotics. When I build them, I do not build those technology challenges for one type of robotics. So it's not going to be for Ozobots or for a code and go mouse. It's really going to be a way, they're built in a way that kids could use any type and you could make it work. And the last one is stop motion. If you do not know about stop motion, there's a latest stop motion app. You really do have to kind of have an iPad for those, unfortunately. It seems like most schools have access to those as well. But a little bit of Google, and those are real easy as well. So those are really the 3 that you'll see as your technology types, because they're pretty friendly for almost every school would have access to them. As I said, if you do not have robotics and the technology challenge is a robotics challenge, you can definitely have them do it code free, where they could do the exact same challenge, but then they just don't have the robot actually do it. They could write hand code for it, or you could just say, hey guys, I'm really sorry, we don't have it, and technology is not an option for this menu. I hope that doesn't happen to you, but it's definitely an option, right? We just know that all of our schools look a little bit different. Let's go on to engineering. So there will always be an engineering challenge. The engineering challenge for this one, because it was the intro one, was really, really basic. But the big thing with our engineering challenges is they're never, ever going to only have one option. There's never only going to be one way to do it. They're going to have criteria for success. They're going to have constraints, and they're going to have to kind of figure it out themselves. So on the presentation, once again, they will have some like engineering inspiration, so they kind of know what they're making, but obviously they get to design it themselves, and then they can watch the video. And once again, that video is also as a QR on their engineering one pager. So with engineering, we have very basic, pretty typical engineering materials, you can always make anything. We call them tear down versus take home. So we always put the take home stuff. So things that would be taped together, things that we can are adhered together is what we tell our students. But you can always try and turn it into a tear down. So I do recommend, especially if you're a younger age teacher, having building blocks, cubes, cards, sticks, any other supplies that don't need to be taped. And they can always try it as a tear down option too, and snap a picture for their portfolio for you. And then that would be the end of it. That being said, with engineering, kids love taking things home. So if you have access to materials, highly recommend it. And on your material sheet, you're going to see things listed as heavy use, medium use, low use. Just so you kind of know, you're going to want to have quite a bit of popsicle sticks. You're going to want to have quite a bit of straws. They're going to use the most of those. We always say 20 plus. Most likely it's probably going to be 20, a mixture of the two. But, every once in a while, a kid will go a little bit crazy. If you're worried about supplies, if you don't have certain supplies, they just don't have access to them. And the kids are really, really good about that usually. Um, but what you can do is you can always put limits too. So you can personalize this anyway. Like you can tell them, hey, you can only use 10 straws. I only have 1,000 for the whole year, so you're only allowed to use 10. That's totally up to you, and you just kind of make it work, right? So just adapt it to your needs. So those medium use, they're going to use like 5 to 10 probably in a project. That being said, it's an average. So one kid maybe use 11, another kid use 2. Sure. You just kind of never know. And that's why it's so hard for us to estimate exactly what your kids are going to use, because no kid's the same and there's not one answer. So because it doesn't have one answer, it's really hard to predict. So we always say what we like to do is, obviously, if you have a lot of what we call heavy use, you're probably going to be okay. If you have a decent amount of the medium use and then just a few of the smaller or the low use, then yeah, you're probably going to be totally fine. But what we try and do is whatever our average use is, we multiply that by the number of projects we're going to have. So if it's popsicle sticks and our average use is 20 and we know that 8 kids are doing it, we make sure we have 160 popsicle sticks accessible, and we'll probably be fine, right? Because a lot of kids won't actually use all 20. So that's kind of how we do it, but you just kind of make do the best that you can. And like I said, if you need to, then set limits. I would recommend teaching your kids how to use tape. You will go through an insane amount of tape if you do not take that step early in the year, if you're going to have them engineer a lot that year. We do have resources as Dakota STEAM for helping kids know how to tape. Check out our YouTube for that. Something that you've gotten probably has a link to that. And if not, we'll make sure, like, contact us and we'll make sure you get it, or just check for us on YouTube. And just making sure they know how to tape, so you're not wasting a whole bunch, because tape is not the cheapest resource for sure. Going on to art. Art is really popular usually. Just so you know, engineering, it's hard because technology, I feel like some years every kid wants to do technology, and then some years I think certain teachers use a lot of technology in their classroom and they're not as into it. But art and engineering are almost always very, very popular. And so each art project is centered around that science as well, and it's usually centered around an art style as well. So we'll give them kind of the art style on here, and then same thing as before, it will have a QR that goes through. And for the art, it's not like engineering. It's not a criteria for success and constraint situation. It is a step by step, but we will never tell them, like, you'll never see on ours how to draw a video. I think those are awesome, but I can't do it. And I don't think it's STEAMified. So instead, it will be something that reflects the science, and more importantly, it will require some creativity. It will not be exactly how to draw something. It will tell them the steps necessary to complete the challenge. So they'll get to definitely work on creativity during this step. Same thing, we try and keep it really, really basic with what we assume people have. Like this one I know does say, this is probably as crazy as it gets, it's Play-Doh or clay, and that's really is outside the norm. But usually it's paper and markers, or crayons or colored pencils or whatever. Every once in a while, paint is a necessity. Um, just like with technology, if you don't have access to it, you don't have access to it, and just make it either tell them like, hey, we're going to do this with markers, and I'm sorry, we don't have paint, or just say, we can't do art this time. Sorry, guys. Which is always a bummer, but it's just the realities of education sometimes. So I hope that doesn't happen to you, but we really do try and keep it as basic as possible so that hopefully that does not become an issue for people. Last one is math. This is STEAMified math, so it's not going to be a page of math problems. It's going to be something related to the math challenge, or sorry, related to the science, but it's going to be a math challenge. So there's probably like a lot of times there's art involved, lots of times there's even some building involved, a lot of geometry involved. Like this one's focusing on scale and relative size, so making blueprints. So it's not going to be that traditional math. I just want you to be aware of that. As with all the others, it will have a QR that allows them to scan and have all the directions written or read to them so that they don't have to worry about that. This one, I can't tell you exactly what yours is going to look like because sometimes it's more engineering style with a criteria for success and constraints. And then sometimes it's more step-by-step style like art, because it really just depends on what they're working on. But they're all a little bit different. And I think my favorite part about these STEAM menus is that each kid really gets some voice and choice, which is so important. And I think we all know the importance of that. And so I hope that your kids love them. We are obsessed with them. Our students are obsessed with them. We're really, really proud of them. And I hope that your kids love them as much as ours do. And I hope that you create with us more. So have an awesome school year, and I hope that their STEAM menus go great. If they are not, and there is something that is a big issue for you, let us know. And we love connecting with you guys, and we love, like, if you can tell us like, hey, this isn't working for me. We love brainstorming solutions for you as well. So contact us, and I hope you have a great day. Bye.